Yo, what is up, guys? I'm going to be going over who I think is going to be the champs at the end of 2026. Let's get into it. I have some controversial picks. I think you guys will be entertained with this one. Let's get into it. For 125, I think I'm happy. Thank you. I think that Tatsuo Taira will be champ at the end of the year. Reason why is I feel like, going up against Van and the skills that he has, he'll be able to use them well and just be better just using all of them combined. With the wrestling, his wrestling is so dangerous, and I think it'll really help him against Van. The only thing that I'm scared about with him is that Manel Cop could be a big threat to him because, we've seen when you have an aggressive style against Tatsuo Taira that it's hard for him to handle it. And when somebody's in his face, he kind of folds under that. Defense is a little questionable backing up. So we'll see about this. I really do think, just watching him, I see his striking is getting so much better. His 1-2 is really nice, really slick. His 2 counter is just amazing. And kicks have always been great. I think he mixes his striking well with his grappling, that he uses it in a way that, he backs you up, then he takes you down. And once he gets you on the ground, everywhere he is so dangerous. He's like a backpack on the ground. And even on the bottom, if he does end up scrambling to the bottom, we've seen twice in the UFC, he's gotten arm bars, just nasty arm bars on people. I think some of the highest level grappling just all around that we've seen. He doesn't really have a weak point on the ground that I've been able to tell. On the feet, as long as he doesn't get pressured too much, I see him just being able to win against anybody at this point. He had a close fight with Brennan Royval that, I do think was fair that the judges gave it to Royval just because of damage and, being that he got pressured badly like that. But I think at this point in time, he would beat Royval. He would beat Van. And with Pantoja being out, that's the only guy that I've seen that would be able to combat with his style other than Cop. I think, Manel Cop can give this guy problems. I think it's tough. He also is the Gyno Warrior. There might be a possibility we find him on roids. But regardless of that, I think Tatsuya Taira will be champ by the end of the year. I really do love this guy's style, and he has a very bright future. Just like Van, he is young. Shout out Van. But Tatsuya Taira, I'm happy. Thank you. So on to the next 135, who I think is going to be champ. Umar Nurmagomedov. And the reason why is I think he is going to improve so much over these next few months. And since his last fight in general, he fights Stevenson Figueiredo soon on this next card. And I think that's going to be a banger. But I think he's going to dominate. And it should be a good year for him. He might be able to fight, 3 times, if anything, but probably 2. And hopefully his next fight after this one is a title fight, because I think it's 99% sure he's going to dominate him. And, I really do think he can give Yan problems, because with his movement, his kicks, and not, giving Yan what he wants, I think, he'll be able to mix everything very well and find a way to win by decision. I don't think he can finish Petr Yan, but it'll be interesting to see. I think that's probably skill-wise the highest level fight we could see almost in the whole entire UFC, because, even though Merab did beat Umar, and we saw Merab verse against Petr Yan, I think just being that Umar has skills higher level than Merab, and, his grappling is high level. So I just think it'll be an interesting scrap. If it does come to it, I think he beats Petr Yan by decision. And, I don't think we see Sean as champ again, I think he will lose to Petr Yan if they do fight, which will be interesting. Like, who knows if we see Sean O'Malley get the title shot first. I really hope we don't. But it most likely might happen. They might have it where Sean turns around quick. Maybe he fights on the White House card and Umar just sits and waits for, fall time and fights Petr Yan for the belt after Petr Yan beats Sean O'Malley. But, I really do think the reason why Umar will win is the lateral movement of Umar is just really good. And, it should be, it's going to be a hard fight. Don't get me wrong. I think, Petr Yan is never a tough out in a fight. He is so technically skilled. He's a dog. Good everywhere. We saw the improvements. He looked unbeatable in that fight. I will say that was the best performance of the year. That was the best performance of 2025. I'm going to make a video about that soon. And, it was very impressive to see, but I do not think that Piotr wins that. I'm going to make a controversial take. I think that's controversial, but, I think Umar's kicks, his movement, and his mixing of everything it'll make a good scrap for Petr Yan. But going on to the next division, 145 for featherweight, I have Gene Silva. This is very controversial because, being that he lost to Diego Lopez in his last one, this is very, very tough. But the title was promised to him 3,000 years ago. If you know, you know. So we are not taking no for an answer on the belt. And Gene Silva will be champ at the end of 2026. I also do think that it might be possible that we see, Diego Lopez possibly lose to Volk, and that maybe Masvidal gets the title shot, and after Masvidal gets the title shot, Volk retires, because I think Volk would beat him, and we might see a vacant title by then. So it might be that maybe in early 2027, he could get a vacant title shot, and I would still count that as a dub prediction. So don't get me wrong, but we'll see. I just think that Gene Silva, he doesn't have real holes, and I think his reads are good in the striking. I really do think, I know it's kind of a salty reaction, but I do think that Gene Silva got fluked by Diego Lopez a little bit. I just think that spinning elbow would not happen most of the time. I think, Gene Silva was on his way to just building up a lot of damage on Diego, and I can't lie, he got messed up badly, though. I don't know if you guys have seen that picture where Gene Silva's face was just minced up, but it happens, man. I think the loss will make him better. He'll come back. I think he's either the best, or I think he's the best fighter, or maybe I think Carlos Prates might be the best, but it's tricky to see. Prates is in a very hard division. Even this one was a hard pick to make just because of, a lot of guys could be, the champ by the end of 2026. We have Diego Lopez, Mazar Evloev, and, it's very tough. Lerone Murphy as well. So Lerone could be champ as well. It's very tough. So this one was probably my hardest pick out of any division because, there's not a clear consensus of who you could pick. The next two divisions, pretty clear for me, but, anything can happen, guys. I do think that even Gene Silva could probably get 3 fights in this year. That's why I favor him to be champ. Masvidal, we haven't seen fight for a while, and Gene Silva, we've known that he could fight short notice. He could fight, short turnaround. So I'm confident in that he stays active and learns from his loss and comes back strong. And, I think he'll put on a good performance against Arnold Allen in this next card. And then in his next fight, he'll get a top 5 guy, hopefully prove that he could get the title. And maybe that third fight will be for the title. We'll see. So on to the next division. Easy pick for this one. Let's be real. Ilya, probably the most dangerous guy in the whole UFC. Nobody could deal with his boxing. I don't think any of those guys, except for Arman, could give him a good fight. Patty gets starched. Justin gets starched. I think it will be very easy for him. Any challenge, whatever it is, only his freaking wife could fight this guy, bro. Tragic what's happening. I really am sad to see the legal dispute, but it happens, So we have to see that bum-ass title fight at the end of this month. But, what are we going to do? So not much to say on this one. I just feel like Patty wins, he starches Patty, and let's say fights another time this year. Hopefully, I know he's not fighting for the first quarter, so maybe we see him in April, hopefully the earliest, beats one of those guys, and then fights Arman after. Maybe Arman might get in another fight. I don't know, because we have Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway. There's not really anyone for Arman to fight. Like, he could fight the loser of this next upcoming interim title fight, or just fight. I don't know if they would put two interim title fights in between, because he didn't say he was going to be out for so long. So, it's really tough to say. But regardless of what it is, I think, we should see Ilya as champion at the end of the year. I don't think he's going to fully vacate the belt. I don't think it will be to that extent, but it'll be interesting to see what will happen. So, hey, on to the next division. 170, Islam Makhachev. Easy pick right here. I think this is nearly a lock. I don't think anybody beats him, honestly. I really like his wrestling. I really like everything that he does. It's just perfect. His performance against JDM was perfect. Even though it was boring, I can't lie, it was boring. But that's the sport. It was amazing to see him, put a performance like that on somebody so high level as JDM. Even after that loss, before we were talking about JDM as such like a threat to Islam, and then we can't go and disregard that after. JDM has great skills, great takedown defense, great boxing, but Islam just showed levels, and he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT of the sport by the end of the year, easily. He's going to fight twice. I think that they might do Kamaru Usman somehow. So I think that's an easy win in his bag. So, and then after, maybe Ian Gary or one of these guys, whoever he beats, whoever they match him up against, he's going to beat. And brother, this is easy win, brother. This is easy. So, Islam, I'm easily taking him as champ. His leg kicks were very nice against JDM. Control was amazing. JDM did an amazing job at, defending those submissions, but it's not enough. And I don't think any of these guys have as good a submission defense as JDM almost, and maybe other than one or two guys. And then once you come into the wrestling and the strike, everything combined, I would like to see Morales fight him too, but I just think he's too sloppy, and even on the ground, he doesn't have enough. I know he has a grappling background as well, but his striking is great. It's going to be so interesting to see Islam fight, and whoever he fights, he's going to beat. That's the truth. So, on to the next division, 185. It will be Khamzat, most likely. I do love Khamzat. Last performance wasn't, a barn burner, but, he dominated the champ, and that was one of the most dominating performances I've ever seen. I think he had 500 significant strikes or some crazy number like that. It was something insane. It's crazy that we have somebody that's that many levels above the champ and comes up and beats him like that. It was probably 50-42 in my books. Having the crucifix for that long against Dricus is an insane thing to do, and none of these guys I think really have it for him. Maybe Fluffy can compete in the grappling, just some of those jiu-jitsu sequences he could do much better than Dricus. I think Dricus doesn't have the best grappling comparative to some of these guys. I think Fluffy's probably the best bet. I don't see anybody else beating him in the division. The only way that he's not the champion is if he moves up. I really think that this might actually be the lock. I'm not going to lie. This might be the lock because, yeah, nobody beats him here. I honestly don't think. I want to see him and Fluffy. I know Fluffy's versing Strickland. Strickland, he has a decent style to beat Khamzat, but I think even at that, he gets submitted. I don't think that the way that Strickland approaches things with, his weight gets up to 240, 230 in the offseason, and I just think he's not the guy to beat him. I think Fluffy, if he can, but that's even crazy at that. I think Khamzat is too quick for these guys. I'm a big believer in lighter man skill, so shout out Lucas Tracy, but lighter man skill is real and way quicker. It's not even a debate. This is one of the best middleweight champions I think we've seen. I hope he stacks up title defenses, but If he finds a way to move up and he moves up, I think he'll win that belt as well. But we'll see. I think maybe Dana might be a little hesitant to give him that bump up after not being too active and just becoming champ. I think we should see at least 3 matchups in here. I think there's a few guys that can give him, you know, a fight, but I don't think they have a chance at winning. So on to the next light heavyweight, the Samurai Yuri Prohaska. We love Yuri. Everybody loves Yuri. We need this to happen. Restore balance to the division. Please, Yuri. We need him to beat Ankalaev after Alex leaves. We know Alex is not coming back to the division because I think they just booked Yuri and, Carlos Ulberg. So I think that will be the fight for Yuri, and then maybe he versus Ankalaev for the vacant belt when Pereira moves up. So I think Pereira will move up probably around the time of the White House card, and we will see, Yuri fight for the title. And I think that he could get it done against Ankalaev. Even though that's a tough fight, I think Yuri, after seeing Ankalaev get knocked, TKO'd by Alex Pereira, I think he'll see that pressing force can work against Ankalaev and could be, a good game plan, and he could go for it and find a way to beat him. I think his wrestling should hold up against Ankalaev. I don't think Ankalaev will shoot that much. And I think that, Yuri's striking is much better than Ankalaev if he could make it dirty. Like, I don't think if he's going to let Ankalaev move around, pressure him, and, Yuri needs to just press the gas on and do what he did against Khalil almost. Like, maybe be a little bit more technical and not let as much damage happen, because we know Ankalaev can, pressure you and hold the pace a little bit longer than Khalil, even though being that if they were to fight, it would be 5 rounds. So Yuri does have that advantage, but he does take a lot of damage, and it will be, tricky for him to assess that. So I think he could pressure Ankalaev, win that, and I don't see anybody else getting this belt in the division. I think Yuri or Ankalaev will be champ if Alex moves up, and I think he will. I don't see a matchup for Alex after they make Ulberg and Yuri. I don't know what the plan is. Maybe Alex takes a lot of time off, but I think they're trying to target either Alex to fight Cyril Gahn or Alex to fight John Jones, and I'm excited to see that. You guys will see in the next pick. I'm going to pick Alex Pereira for heavyweight. I think that Alex Pereira will beat Tom Aspinall or Cyril Gahn for the title. Doesn't matter which one. I think his striking will be able to, outweigh the size advantage and outweigh some of the wrestling advantage that Tom Aspinall has. I think, people overrated Tom a little bit. I still think that Tom is very high level and that, his game is just all around good, but Alex Pereira does have lighter man skill, which you guys know I believe in. And I just think that it should be that Alex Pereira knocks out either one of them. I think Cyril Gahn would be a tougher out than Tom Aspinall. But, it's tricky seeing which matchup he gets. I still think he wins either one of them. I think the only person that he realistically loses to at heavyweight would be John Jones. It's crazy. I think that Alex Pereira stylistically beats both Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gahn, but loses to John Jones just because of that grappling advantage. I feel like, the lighter man, I don't think that any of these guys are close to skill with the takedowns, with the grappling, just with all-around game in general to John Jones. But I still think Tom Aspinall does have a good shot at beating John Jones, though. I know that's crazy to say. I feel like, everyone thinks that Tom Aspinall would easily, but I think it would be a tough fight for him still. Regardless of that, I do think that, Alex can finish the year as champ for heavyweight. It'll be good to see. There's not much to talk about here at heavyweight, just being that, there's not a lot of guys that you can pick to be champ at the end of the year. Maybe 3 guys. I don't see John Jones fully coming back. I know he would only consider coming back for, an Alex Pereira fight. There could be a world where maybe, Pereira wins the belt first and then John Jones comes back and fights, and I could see him winning that, but it would be so weird for them to do it in that way. I would see, maybe Pereira moves up to heavyweight and fights John Jones first, and then he'll fight for a title maybe, but I don't know if they would just give it to him straight away. I feel like you couldn't give, Pereira the title fight right away, but they might not do it like that. I know they have a lot of plans for the White House because there's not a lot of people that want to fight at the White House unexpectedly. So they might be, reaching for people to step in and have big names come in there and fight. So we might see John Jones there needing an American. So it'll be interesting, but nevertheless, Alex Pereira, champ for heavyweight. In my opinion, that's what I think is going to happen. I really do hope it happens. Nothing against Tom Aspinall. I think he's a great fighter, great hands, great wrestling. I just think that Pereira has that level above in all-around striking, and I don't think that Cyril Gane has enough damaging strikes to where he can, impose that on Alex Pereira. I think Alex Pereira is just too dangerous for these guys, too technically sound compared to the division. His speed disadvantage in a lot of previous fights won't be as apparent in this division, and I think, it'll be very good for him to move up. I think that would be a very good decision. So I'm excited to see. Nevertheless, that was my prediction on all of the champs at the end of the year for 2026. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.